Satoru Gojo, an iconic character that can be described in many ways. But before anything else, he's the strongest. Gojo comes from a series called Jujutsu Kaisen, where he plays the role of the teacher and master for the protagonist Yuji. But unlike most stories, Gojo plays a massive role in the narrative of the series. Gojo is the child of fate, not Yuji Itadori, as he possesses the 6 eyes. These special set of eyes, foretold to only appear every 400 years, rest within Gojo. And not only this, these eyes being linked to fate itself, so integral to the fate of the world that they always play a role in preventing one of the primary antagonists from destroying it. On top of all this, Satoru seems to be more powerful than most users of the 6 eyes in the past, a prodigy among prodigies. In another world, Gojo would be the protagonist rather than Yuji. But Jujutsu Kaisen is not a story that follows a normal structure. In this video, I'll be diving into Jujutsu Kaisen and how it uses Satoru Gojo as a multi-purpose tool in order to create what is, in my opinion, one of the best and most beloved characters in Shonen in a while. And with that said, let's get straight into it. Satoru, when formally introduced into the series, comes off as quite arrogant and funny, yet badass, arriving to the scene quite late with food in his hand that he just bought, and then he asks Yuji to swap with Sukuna so he can try to fight him. As he tells Megumi about the food, Sukuna attacks Gojo with no hesitation, leading up to him completely bullying the weakened Sukuna. If Gojo wasn't badass enough when it came to his design, his very first display of both personality and strength only cements it. And as the series continues, we see Gojo in some of the best fights with some of the most beautiful art and scenes. For example, his battle against the disaster curses that displays how overwhelming his strength is, even when under many restrictions, or when he's forced to undergo an awakening while facing Toji Zenin. He has his iconic Honored One moment. It's very easy to like Gojo, as he certainly does live up to his title and perception as the strongest and provides viewers with so many cool moments while doing so. I mean, there was even a running gag in the community that Gojo had replaced Yuji as the main character of the series when he returned, but I'm sure there were a good amount of people who truly believe this. The kind yet badass and powerful teacher is only surface level when it comes to a character as well written as Gojo though, as he's quite a complex character, the intricacies of what lie beyond his strength adding so much more to what already is a good enough teacher for a story. Gojo by those around him is defined by his strength for majority of his life. His birth literally changed the entire world. He's the first sorcerer in 400 years with the potential to use the limitless to his full capabilities. His existence retired all curse users, and his presence forced the world to balance itself out by creating even more powerful curses to match his overwhelming strength as a human. All these factors and even more resulted in Gojo living a very unique life from every other character in the story. As his existence is one of a kind, so are his experiences. Gojo was so talented and special that he could quite literally do anything he put his mind to. As the databook even states that it's because he can do anything he wants, he has no hobbies whatsoever. I believe Gege made Gojo the best at everything, so the people who are the best at their own respective things in their circles, town, country, all the above can be relatable to him. Gojo could have been only the best sorcerer, not talented in everything else, and the point of his character in the story would still stand. So to me, the fact that Gojo said to be able to do anything and be the best at it just serves to make him more relatable to readers. Gojo though was not always alone. He did once meet somebody who stood at the same level as him as a sorcerer. This character being Satoru Geto, and through Geto, he would know what it's like to know somebody who understands the territory that comes with ridiculous strength. Someone who can relate to the life that he leads as the strongest sorcerer of the current age. And I like to always mention a point that Geto was arguably more unique than Gojo himself for them to consider each other equals. Gojo is literally a child of fate itself, whereas Geto is just an ordinary guy who matches the child of fate. His parents were not even sorcerers, making him even more anomalous. These two characters held a strong bond due to being able to understand one another, and the story makes this very clear so readers can pick that up and have an idea of how much the upcoming parts of the flashback would define the Gojo we see in the present time today. A lot of tragedy is within this part of the story, and it reinforces the connection between the reader and Gojo by displaying the origin of his purpose as a sorcerer. Geto and Gojo would become brothers and remain so up until the events of the hidden inventory. After Gojo and Geto would face Toji and lose Riko battling him, Gojo and Geto would be placed in a predicament right after that tests their humanity. As Gojo holds Riko's dead body, the organization that hired Toji to assassinate her would surround them and applaud, celebrating her death as the two teenagers mourned. Gojo would ask Geto if they should kill everybody in the organization right at that moment, because if they did it right now, he wouldn't feel anything. Geto responds by saying it's pointless, providing some strong reasoning behind this decision, but Gojo responds by asking if there really needs to be a reason. Geto ends the conversation saying of course, it's important, especially as Jujutsu sorcerers. A year later, the roles would be reversed. Geto and Gojo would be separated due to them being able to handle missions on their own. Geto on his mission alone would consume every curse he defeated. As Geto would be saving non-sorcerers by doing this, the same group of people that mocked his greatest failure, he would be reminded of the evil once cast upon him through the disgusting taste of curses he had to endure each time he would complete a mission. At some point, Geto would break, massacring an entire village and leaving Jujutsu society. Gojo, on the other hand, remained as a student and fulfilled his duty. Gojo would eventually come to confront Geto about his decisions, and there are a couple of key points I want to address in this conversation that tell us a lot about Gojo's character and how this moment truly rocked and defined him. A lot of this will tie to chapter 261 as well, as I think it's only made this moment much better than it already was. First, Geto explains to Gojo that there's now a point to killing non-sorcerers, which is why he's decided to go through with it. And not only that, it's justice. Although it's a very twisted justice, it is the conclusion that Geto has come to. Same thing with chapter 261 of Jujutsu Kaisen, that displays Gojo making the decision himself to slaughter the higher-ups. It's something he's never wanted to do or rely on as a solution, but after seeing what they have done to his students, there's a point to it, and it's also justice. Obviously though, I don't think Gojo has as much pleasure as Geto did in making this decision, but that could be part of the point in him saying that he needed to catch up to him, or it's just the fact that they're two different people and characters. Second, there's also the bit where Geto separates both him and Gojo by saying that something impossible for himself is something that Gojo can do. They are no longer the same, and Geto reinforces this truth by asking Gojo if he's the strongest because he is Gojo, or if he's Gojo because he's the strongest, smacking Gojo in the face by telling him that he now sees him the same way that everyone else does in this world. Strength first, everything else second. And he does it in the worst way possible, as asking that question is basically telling Gojo that strength is all you are and resemble. As Geto affirms the path that he's headed down is now one he cannot be saved from, Gojo prepares to kill him, but he walks away from Gojo saying, if you want to kill me, then do it. There's meaning in that too. Obviously, Gojo could not do it. Gojo knew that he would be alone the moment Geto stated that he cannot be saved, hence the instant reaction of Gojo preparing a purple, but his humanity took over and prevented him from finishing the job. Bearing the fact that this emotionally scarred Gojo for life as his best friend betrayed him in one of the worst ways possible, chapter 261 once again displays a very tragic parallel to this moment as Gojo walks away from his students in order to finally kill the higher-ups, since changing Jujutsu society was just not going to happen with them always around, no matter how righteous or correct he tried to handle the situation and change the world. Team Yuta would ask him to no longer bear the burden of being a monster alone, and Gojo just says to himself that there's nothing that can be done about this, since he was left in the dust a long time ago, and at this point, he needs to catch up. A heartbreaking result of his attempt to do things in the most peaceful way possible, and it's even more tragic due to the fact that he's actively acknowledging this at a moment where he believes his death has a chance of coming very soon. Before people get upset, Gojo knew that Sukuna had a very real chance of killing him. As he says that, one of the reasons he chooses to slaughter the higher-ups here was, in the event that he lost, his students wouldn't have to deal with them and their schemes after, just like they did with the Shibuya incident. Gojo and Geto's final confrontation truly did leave a scar on Gojo emotionally, and it was deep enough that it made Gojo's purpose moving forward to prevent something like that from ever happening to any future sorcerers, to never allow them to experience isolation caused by this incident or anything like it. And I think we see success in this through Yuta Okkotsu. Yuta, who experienced much isolation through being a monster in his own right before meeting the sorcerers at Jujutsu Tech, is the one to understand Gojo and have an idea of how much he suffered being alone. Yuta truly despises that Gojo has to live in such a way, but where Yuta displays that Gojo has succeeded is in him questioning everyone if anybody's ever considered Gojo's feelings of carrying the burden of being the monster. The fact that there's now awareness of the potential of overwhelming solitude being present within someone like Gojo is enough in my opinion to hopefully change that or combat it in the future. Not only this, but Yuta and the rest of the sorcerers are carrying Gojo's legacy in their battle against Sukuna currently. I enjoy how everything spun out for Gojo here, as it serves to really tell us that Gojo's strength has hurt him so much due to his humanity, and if we compare that to Sukuna, who also holds the position of the strongest in his own era, we can see that Sukuna has tons of satisfaction. Why is this? It's because he has no humanity. It would essentially be impossible to replicate Sukuna's lifestyle in the real world. This isn't to say that being number one like Gojo isn't something you should aspire toward, but Gojo's character makes it a point to not focus on that so much and focus on the things that truly matter, such as your humanity and the people around you. These characters speak about becoming monsters in order to achieve their present goals, yes, but that's because there are no other practical or realistic choices presented. Each of them are not happy with the decisions they've had to make. Although Geto can be debated, if the first two options were feasible or realistic to him, he would have chosen those before choosing the extermination of non-sorcerers. Moving on from the origin of Gojo's purpose, I want to jump all the way to his death, as this is another part of Gojo's character that makes him an all-time great to me. Most people's primary problem with Gojo's death is the off-screen world-cutting slash, so I'll get on that first. When it comes to Satoru Gojo as a whole, to me, he's a character who's always had it all, yet wants just one more thing. I do like the effect that the slash not being displayed has had on me over time. Gojo vs Sukuna gave me everything I wanted and more out of their battle, yet it leaves me wanting just this one thing out of it more than anything else. This description serving as a mirror to Gojo's own lifelong yearning. The fight between Gojo and Sukuna serves as a beautiful send-off to the character of Satoru Gojo. I believe the chapter of his death, starting with him speaking about his life, displaying how misunderstood he was through his conversation with the others, and how happy he is despite everything that's happened to him, only reinforces my perspective of the world-cutting slash serving as a tool to implant the same feelings that Gojo experiences throughout most of his life into the reader. Whether intentional or not, it's grown on me, and this is just one of many ways to interpret the battle on a meta level. When it comes to Gojo's death overall, it does a beautiful job at helping readers understand that Gojo had always felt separated from the people around him, and that when Sukuna came around, a sorcerer that can match him at his peak, he wanted to use everything he had in order to reach Sukuna as an equal. In other words, relieve Sukuna of his solitude in the same way Sukuna relieved his in their battle. But Gojo states that it wasn't enough. Before I continue, remember that every character in this story does not know everything in the world, so their statements come from their perspectives. I always believe Gojo was wrong with this statement, because most characters do not understand Sukuna. They believe that Sukuna is someone that needs to be taught love, or doesn't know what it is, when that really couldn't be further from the truth. Sukuna has moved far past that. He knows what he must do as one that everyone aspires to reach, and he acknowledges his greatest challenger with his full name and body open toward him as he states that he'll never forget him for as long as he lives. Now couple this with Gojo's slight smile at the bottom of this same page, displaying that he's dying with absolutely no regrets, as he now knows that he truly did reach Sukuna after all. A truly beautiful ending. Gojo shouting at Yaga asking him if sorcerers are really supposed to die with regrets only makes the send-off hit even harder. After living a life completely alone, he died surrounded by everybody and achieving everything he set out to do with flying colors. When Jujutsu Kaisen's all said and done, Gojo's death will go down as one of the best in Shonen and will age gracefully with time. Another little thing that plays a great role into not only Gojo being a very interesting character, but most character in the series being interesting, is this conversation by Mahito and Kenjaku in chapter 91 of Jujutsu Kaisen. In this conversation, Kenjaku states that Mahito theorized that the soul came before the body, but due to the memories that inhabit Geto's body, even after his death, he was able to temporarily resist Kenjaku's control. So Mahito cannot be right about the soul coming before the body. But Mahito responds to Kenjaku with this: does it have to be the same for everybody? Considering our curse techniques, you and I practically live in different worlds. Kenjaku says, so our techniques dictate our worlds, huh? I like that. Gojo then asks for the two to seal him, as his conversation is nauseating to him. Gojo's inclusion here could be for laughs, but it could also be due to the fact that he agrees with them on this. As most already know, the Infinity allows nobody to have physical contact with Gojo, and his eyes come once every 400 years. These eyes forcing Gojo to see the world in a very different way from everyone else. I find Gojo's little moment here to be completely intentional, as the conversation between these two characters applies to Gojo more than anybody else from what we've seen. Moving on from Gojo's isolation as a whole, I think another reason I find Gojo so interesting is because despite being the guy who can easily do anything he wants, he still fails, especially when it really matters. There are many problems in this world that will occur and cannot be handled alone, no matter how competent you are. Gege Akutami, when writing Jujutsu Kaisen, likes to beat this into the viewer's head by using Gojo himself. As previously mentioned, Gojo had so much power over the entire world of Jujutsu Kaisen that he became a necessity for the preservation of peace in the world. 1 month without him and everything fell apart, even with the presence of strong sorcerers such as Yuta and Yuki. The sealing of Satoru Gojo serves to show how flawed the world is when they just give everything to Gojo, because when somebody wants to destroy it, all they need to do is remove Gojo. It's way too flawed of a system. The hidden inventory also displays this to a lesser extent. Toji weakens Gojo and separates him from everyone else before fighting him, exploiting these factors by finally duping out Gojo by having him believe that he left the fight to eliminate Amanai, when really, he was just making Gojo believe this so he can catch him off guard again and finish him off. I reckon that Gojo and Geto could have figured something out to keep Amanai safe, and maybe even won had they stuck together. On the other hand, when Gojo's proactive in trying to have his students be able to fend for themselves and setting up the next generation, he's usually quite successful and rewarded for this. Again, Gojo's students are carrying his legacy through fighting Sukuna currently, and as someone who has decided to dedicate his entire life to making a generation of sorcerers as competent as he was, I think saving the entire world and overcoming the strongest sorcerer in history at the same time would be more than enough to say that he succeeded in doing this. Not only this, but through weakening Sukuna, Gojo is the de facto sorcerer to give every other sorcerer a chance of ending this endless marathon of Jujutsu sorcery. The same marathon that has stolen his best friend from him, and in a way, his own agency as a person, as he's mostly perceived in a way that values what he can contribute to Jujutsu society rather than anything relating to his humanity. Gojo's death and accomplishments are all quite poetic, and they serve, like most mentor figures in the series, to propel the main cast of heroes to further heights. Gojo here, like many others in the endless marathon of Jujutsu sorcery, serves as a medium for the author to tell readers that living for more than yourself has a greater effect than you think. Every character that has sacrificed themselves against Sukuna has played a crucial role in preventing the rest of the cast from getting completely decimated by him. Not a single sorcerer has a wasted effort in the story. Yuki in her book, Iguruma's removal of Kamotoke, Gojo's efforts against Sukuna and massively weakening him, Choso's sacrifice for Yuji, every single sacrifice is quite literally playing a role in saving the entire world. This also applies in the real world honestly, because helping others usually has a butterfly effect. Gojo as a character really forces readers to question the belief and ideology of the lone wolf, as cool as it may seem at first. Not only this, he invites the reader to look at the people in their own lives a little deeper than they usually do, meanwhile making it look very cool and tugging at their heartstrings a bit. Gojo is, in my opinion, one of Jujutsu Kaisen's best characters, and he provides so many lessons for readers to pick up on if they choose to. When it comes to most readers, I'm sure that the one thing they can agree on before anything else is that Satoru Gojo is an amazing character who provides so much to the narrative of Jujutsu Kaisen. Speaking of most readers, now let's move on to something a little different than usual yet still very relevant to the character, the community behind him, and how controversial Gojo can be within it. I mean, the character is behind 95% of controversies one way or another, with the other 5% being Yuji. But the most interesting one of them all was, of course, the Gojo revival debates. If you watch my videos, you know what side I'm on. And moving aside the actual debate, I want to mention that the fact that this topic even exists and that the mention of it will instantly cause 17 heated debates all over the internet serves as a testament to how great of a character Satoru Gojo is and how dear he is to all that have read the series. People want Gojo to return because he's a great character, and the people who don't want him to return 80% of the time didn't want him to return because they believe he had a great send-off and he had a very happy ending in such a miserable world. Either way, both sides want what they believe is best for the character, and to me that's a good thing. A very telling sign of a great and enjoyable character. There's also a couple of strange things that have happened relating to Gojo, and if you know, you know, I guess. Another thing with the community is the endless fan art, edits, and fan animations of Gojo vs Sukuna that exist all over. I mean, it's overwhelming and it's extremely high quality stuff everywhere you go. Imagine what we'll be seeing from people in 5 years when the series is over, the anime's airing season 3, and everything like that. We are going to be eating. I genuinely believe that not only Gojo, but Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole has been immortalized as a great, and Satoru Gojo will be the face of the series. Through his strength, multi-layered nuance, themes, legacy, and overwhelming dominance over the entire story of Jujutsu Kaisen, Satoru Gojo stands head and shoulders as one of the greatest characters in Shonen. And he does this while easily impacting the lives of many viewers and accumulating tons of completely badass moments throughout the entire series. Gojo was tailor-made by Gege Akutami to be the complete package, and this is a surefire recipe to make your audience remember you forever. People are certainly going to miss him when Jujutsu Kaisen's gone. And with all that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, was able to see Gojo how I see him and see why I believe he's an all-time great, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.